People are always interested in coaching terminology. Coaches have terms for formations, for plays, for defenses, for routes. You name it, there's a term for it. Now, the terms are not always the same for all coaches. I mean, don't even get them start trying to number defensive players. I mean, talk about a 6, and a 7, and a 9, you're liable to end up with a fight going on. But they also have terms for players, not just the positions they play. And as with anything else, there are terms everyone uses, and then there are those that are used by some coaches and not by others. Today, we'll look at a few, and we'll start with one that most people are familiar with, the Jimmies and Joes. Now, Jimmies and Joes are all of the players you have on your team. Coaches generally believe that it is the Jimmies and Joes who actually determine whether you win or lose, as in, his Jimmy and Joes are better than ours. Now, occasionally you'll come across the ego-driven coach who will say, I can beat you with mine and I can beat you with yours. He's usually drunk when he says this, but he thinks he's so good that the Jimmies and Joes don't matter. He's often referred to as a dick with ankles, or someone who thinks his shit doesn't stink. Now, among your Jimmies and Joes, you might also have some cats. Cats are really good players, or at least players with great athletic ability. The team with the most cats usually wins, although some teams don't take advantage of their cats or don't get their cats to play disciplined football, and they lose. Those students who don't play for you are not Jimmies and Joes. They are hall walkers. They walk the hall instead of playing ball. Some of them are beaters and blowers. They're in the band. Some are soft. Or in the case with some coaches, a bunch of pussies. Now, if your Jimmies and Joes don't have a lot of cats among them, then it may be resume time. In other words, you need to look to get the hell out of there before you get your brains beat out every week and ruin your resume, or before they fire you because all of a sudden you have become a dumbass, or the game has passed you by. Believe it or not, in parent world, the game can pass you by even if you're in your 30s. So let's change direction and talk about those players who are not cats. They're not starters. Some of them are not even good subs. You know, they couldn't play dead in a cowboy movie. Now that brings to mind another term, Riverside. Riverside is a change of direction. For example, you're running plays during a team session and moving the ball so that you can simulate real game situations, and more importantly, you aren't chewing up the grass. In other words, you don't destroy the few sprigs of grass you have remaining on the practice field by not staying in the same place. Staying in the same place on a football field and killing grass is something the beaters and blowers would do. Anyhow, when you get to the end of the field, the coach calls out Riverside, which tells the players to turn around and start moving the ball in the opposite direction. Why Riverside? Well, the story is that when General Robert Neyland was the head coach of Tennessee way back in the days, like the 30s and 40s and 50s, there was a river that ran along the edge of his practice field. When his team neared the end of the field, he would call out Riverside, and they would change and go in the opposite direction so as not to end up in the river. Now, most of us never have rivers, just like huge ditches or big old puddles around the field, but the term still works. And yes, they actually had Army officers who coached football back then. I guess they were the actual field generals. Maybe that's why General Neyland's teams often march down the field to touchdowns. But let's get back to some of these terms for non-starters. ATR, all the rest. If you're doing a drill and you have players left over who are not involved in the drill, they are ATRs. When a coach makes a practice schedule, he needs to account for the ATRs and find them something to do. Otherwise, they're just standing around wasting time. That will lead to lollygagging and other such activities that distract from practice. Some of the ATRs can actually be cats, but they're ATRs at that moment because they're not involved in what you're working on. Maybe you're doing extra points, field goals, and a few of your cats aren't on that. You're going to have them standing around, or you're going to send them to work on routes. It's your call. What are you doing with the ATRs? PBH, permanent bag holder. This guy's never going to be a starter. He's too small, too slow, whatever the case. But there are those guys you know who will never start. That's the permanent part. Bag holder means he holds a dummy. Now, he might not literally hold one all of the time, but this dude is always on the scout team. When you call scout team, he grabs a dummy and gets in position. Always. Permanently. Cuban. A Cuban is a player who is really awful. He can't play a lick. Or he's a guy who's in the coach's doghouse, and the coach is going to keep him on the sideline to teach him a lesson, largely because you're going to beat the hell out of the other team anyhow. Either way, he's not seeing the field until the game is out of hand. That usually means you're up 50, maybe down 50, unless there's a mercy rule, in which case he gets in sooner. Why Cuban? Because he ain't getting to play until the coaches are lighting up cigars. Now, there's nothing wrong with an ATR, a PBH, or even a Cuban. They all contribute to the team. But then there is the sandwich eater. He's on the team, but he serves no useful purpose. He wastes everyone's time at practice. He isn't serious about what he's doing. He really doesn't want to play. He just wants to wear a uniform or pad his resume for college. Seriously, those guys are on pretty much every team that doesn't have tryouts and cut. They're not going to get in serious trouble. Not bad guys. So you're not going to just be able to get rid of them. They're just there. No real contribution. They just eat pre-game meals that cost you money. They're a sandwich eater. They might as well be eating sandwiches while you're having practice or while the games are going on. Coaches love the ATRs and the PBHs and the Cubans. Sandwich eaters, not so much. So as you go through life, be a Jimmy or a Joe, or even a beater and blower, and get involved rather than a hall walker who just exists. It's great to be a cat, but you don't have to be. Lots of cats never live up to their potential. It's more than okay to be an ATR or a PBH or even a Cuban. You're making a contribution, and you can't have a successful team or a successful society without those guys. But don't be a damn sandwich eater.